Hello, I'm Tony from Southern Sustenance, and this is the first episode of a channel that I want to help better describe what sustainable gardening is and how it applies to Southern Australia. So there are a few channels out there on YouTube that deal with this topic, however none of them are really suited to Australia, and the ones that are, they're mostly located in the northern reaches of Australia. So to begin with, I'll talk about a few different factors that affect sustainable gardening, and also how one can start a sustainable garden. So let's go. So I live in the northern suburbs of Adelaide, and the climate here is a typical sort of Mediterranean climate. Gets cool up to 0 degrees in winter, and in summer we can get highs of 49 degrees, and we've had that over the past couple of years. It makes growing things difficult, especially in the soil we have here, which is heavy clay. To add to all of that, there's a few other things that I don't think are widely appreciated in gardening, so I wanted to touch upon those also in this episode, as well as a bit of what I have in this garden. So this garden, I'll take you through the garden first, and I'll show what we've got. So this is a plum tree, very vigorous plum tree. We have a few mature plants that we got upon purchase of this house. Some banana palms, some various citron type citrus. Got a few mature grapevines along the back fence. A guava that's maybe 18 months old. A loquat there, similar sort of age. We've got a persimmon here, mature tree, and as well as this Granny Smith. Got a few mature stone fruit here, so we've got a white nectarine, a golden peach, and a yellow peach. Got a quince, a bit of a swale started, prickly pear. A thornless blackberry. A lime tree, again 18 months old. And top it off, another mature grapevine down there. So when I moved into this place, there was a lot of work that needed to be done, the whole back bit, and I'll put pictures in this video. Was lawn. You know, it wasn't really value adding to what I want out of a garden. So the first thing I think, or the most important thing about starting a sustainable garden is getting the soil right. You can't really change the soil that you have. You can amend it, but unless you pick an area that has good soil, you're going to have to do some work to it. So the first thing I did with the grass that we had was I scalped it in summer, and that pretty much gave it a few weeks of that in the baking sun, and it killed it. And then I proceeded to rototill it all, and mix in sandy loam and gypsum, about a ton of each. After that all happened, and you want to use a bit of water to keep it damp, I got some mulch added to it to cover it all up. I've had some tests done on soil here actually by a friend of mine, and when they analysed it, they found that there was less than 1% carbon or organic matter in the soil. The rest was clay. So I knew that I had to do something about it, and that's where I proceeded to put the gypsum in and the sandy loam to try to amend it. So I think something that is missing in Australia is we don't have a lot of topsoil in a lot of areas, and that's an issue. That's an issue for the carbon cycle. So carbon cycle is where you have a plant, it grows, it drops its leaves, that provides nutrients and new plants grow. So without having carbon in the soil, yes, there are Australian natives, but with a lot of plants that we like to eat and provide us fruit, they're from other areas of the world. So we really want to raise the level of carbon. We want between 10 and 20% in the soil. So how do we do that? Well, adding in the mulch, you'll start getting worms and grubs that'll start eating that and adding in that organic matter into the soil. That's the first bit that I wanted to mention. The second bit is the water cycle. So we all know you've got oceans, water is evaporated from them, forms clouds over mountains, it rains, and then we've got water and it goes back to the ocean. Humans have disrupted that system by increasing the density of houses we have. A lot of the water that will naturally filter into the water table isn't happening. It's going to the sewer, going out to the ocean, and that means the water table that is beneath us lowers. You know, people use bores, etc. I'm not against those things, but when plants breathe, they exhale water vapor, and that's also part of the water cycle. And if there's not enough water in the soil, we've got to water plants more. It's no good. So we want to increase the moisture in our soil. So some things you can do locally to do that is consider where you have water tanks and where the overflow is, but also if you have downpipes that go to the sewer, to the street, see if you could divert those onto your lawn, or even onto a spot of your garden, or into water tanks. Try to make best use of it, helping the environment and helping your garden too. So I think they're two really important things. You can't really change what happens with the climate, but we can change locally what we do, and if enough people do it, it'll have a positive impact. So I mentioned here that we're in Adelaide. It's a Mediterranean climate. It gets very hot here. So you want your plants to be resilient as possible, and for that I recommend not growing dwarf plants, but trying to get the full vigor of the rootstock there. And you want rootstocks and plants that can cope with the soil, that can cope with heavy clay or their climate here. I think that's very important. So there are ways you can, you may have heard of microclimates and that. There are ways and methods you can utilise in your garden to help give plants the best start and alter the local climate in your garden. I'll show you a few examples that I have around my yard and what I've done, and give you some ideas. So this is just some gutters that come off the garage, and it just goes into the ground there. Looking at putting a water tank there in the future, but at the moment I've got no issues with that just going there. And as you can see, I've got a very vigorous plum tree. It's probably 5-6 meters high, and it loves the moisture there. Try to grow things that are big or that need more shade along a fence line. So the grapes were there when I came here, but the bananas, believe it or not, they don't like too much sun, or very strong sun I should say. Also show you what I've done in the front yard, and I'll give you some ideas of how you can sort of reduce the heat in your local area. Try to cool the land down a bit. This used to be a covered area with a brick wall that I've sort of hacked away at. When we had 49 degrees here, some dragon fruit. When we had 49 degrees here, we had over 50 underneath here and all around, and a lot of plants are planted including palms. They didn't make it. I've changed the climate here by removing the wall, increasing airflow. I have removed the shade, but in doing so, I've removed that heat bank, which was that big brick wall and the trapping of air. I'll take you now to the front yard. So here we are in the front yard. You can see the lawn here. That's sort of tried to plant some emerald kikuyu, but normal kikuyu came out from nowhere. Previously this was all gravel, and I've sort of dumped it along here for now, but this was all gravel, and when we had the heat in summer, it was that hot from the gravel that we had paint falling off the eaves of the house. So pretty much the same sort of deal here. I rototilled it, added in gypsum and sandy loam, and seeded it and kept it wet until it grew. Also put in a bit of a hedge there of lavender and rosemary. It's just starting to rain, so I'll go undercover. Lavender and rosemary, not only does it smell nice and attract insects, but it buffers the wind and any moisture that might be lost through that wind movement. I haven't shown it, but out on the verge I've also planted some Australian natives, and again long term that'll form a hedge and again buffer the wind, provide a bit of shade, so I can sort of keep that moisture local to the front yard. You may have noticed also that there's a lot of clover there. I don't mind that there's clover. That doesn't really matter to me, because I know that the function that it provides is nitrogen. It's free fertilizer. So I think the whole thing why I want a sustainable garden is I want my plants and my trees to give me fruit, and I want to put as much minimal input into that system as possible. So the mulch, that carbon cycle, is providing nutrients, trying to raise the water table locally, and hopefully plants can tap into that. And the mulch also covers the ground, which is important in conserving the water, but also trying to have the water drain away a bit more than normally happens in clay, and that's just by getting more organic matter into the soil. So I hope you like this episode, and stay tuned for more. Thanks.